All right, let's dive into this. Shiva consciousness. A pretty fascinating topic,
Yeah, definitely. Lots to unpack.
for sure. So you wanted to explore the deeper meaning of Shivarathri.
Yeah, I've always been curious about it.
Well, the source material you sent, it's got some really interesting stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like there's this Telugu poem describing Lord Shiva. It's so vivid. The crescent moon, the Ganga flowing from his hair, the whole majestic scene.
I can picture it.
Right. But then it goes on to say that even this amazing imagery can't truly capture the essence of Shiva.
Interesting. So how do they explain it?
It's like, imagine trying to explain the ocean by just pointing to one wave.
Hmm.
It just doesn't do it justice.
I see, yeah. It's beyond words.
Exactly. So how do we even start to grasp this concept of Shiva consciousness? If it's everywhere, how do we connect with it?
That's the big question, isn't it?
That's what we'll be exploring today. So one thing that really struck me is that we're not talking about Shiva as a traditional deity here.
Right. It's more about a universal consciousness.
Yeah, present everywhere in every living being.
So it's like reframing the whole idea of God.
Totally. Instead of separate from us, it's suggesting something way more interconnected.
Absolutely. The source actually defines Shiva as this all-pervading consciousness, the auspicious one that exists within us. It's like challenging that idea of a God out there somewhere.
It's a whole different way of thinking about it.
It really is.
And then there's that Sanskrit phrase from the source, sarvata panipadam,
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that one.
with hands, feet, eyes, head, mouth, and ears pervading everything, it says. He permeates the entire universe.
It's powerful imagery.
It really is. So it's saying Shiva consciousness isn't distant or separate,
It's already here.
right? It's not something we have to reach for.
It's already within us.
I love how it ties into the idea of Shivarathri not being just one day.
Yeah, if Shiva consciousness is always there.
Then every moment could be Shivarathri.
It's about being aware, not just observing a ritual.
Exactly. The source really emphasizes that shift, from ritual to awareness.
It's about recognizing the divine in the everyday.
But even with all these explanations, the source admits that putting this into words is tough.
Yeah. How do you describe something that's beyond description?
Right. Like it mentions terms for Lord Shiva, Mukhanti, the three-eyed one, or Trinetra.
But in the end, words just don't cut it.
And there's this story the source tells about Lakshmi and Parvati. They're arguing over whose husband is superior, Vishnu or Shiva.
Oh, I remember that story. Classic.
They're each praising their husband when Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom, steps in.
And she drops some serious wisdom on them.
Totally. She's like, hey, you're both missing the point. They're so focused on the differences, they're forgetting the unity that connects them.
It's a good lesson for all of us, really.
So true. We get so caught up in what separates us.
Is forget what unites us.
Exactly. So if words can't capture Shiva consciousness, how do we connect with it?
Well, the source has a pretty clear answer for that. Love.
Yeah, makes sense.
It says, it is only love that can bind God.
It's like when we experience love, we feel connected
We feel a sense of oneness.
beyond our individual selves
Love has the power to break down those boundaries.
and see the shared humanity in everyone.
It's a powerful force.
So cultivating love isn't just a nice thing to do, it's essential.
Especially if we want to connect with Shiva consciousness.
And the source also says we shouldn't attribute negative qualities to God.
It's a human tendency, projecting our own limitations.
It's like we create God in our own image.
With all our flaws and imperfections,
So if we see negativity, it's not coming from Shiva consciousness itself,
it's coming from us.
our own limited view.
Exactly.
And this leads to a really important idea, unity.
The source is very clear about
It
this.
says divinity is being divided by devotees,
We get so caught up in different names and rituals.
that we forget the unifying principle behind them all.
Like we're creating artificial divisions.
But at the core, it all comes from the same source.
It even says straight out, it is a misconception to think that Lord Rama may be angry if you worship Lord Krishna.
Right. It's not about choosing sides.
It's about recognizing the oneness that connects everything.
That's such a powerful message.
It really is.
Seeing beyond the differences.
Seeing the connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it reminds us that there's a deeper connection, like threads in a tapestry.
I like that image of a tapestry.
Yeah.
It really brings home that emphasis on personal experience.
Oh, definitely. You can't just understand this stuff. You have to experience it.
That's what the source keeps saying, right?
Right.
One cannot explain, one has only to experience it. But how do we even do that?
Well, it can be a challenge, that's for sure. But remember that idea of love. It's not just some nice idea, it's like a path.
Cultivating love for all beings.
Yeah. It helps us break down those walls in our minds. Instead of me versus them, it's more like we're all in this together.
Seeing the world through love, not fear.
Exactly. And the source is clear about it. Negative feelings, they don't touch the divine.
It's our minds that create those limitations.
Right. Like that line, divinity is all positive only.
So when we feel negativity, it's not from Shiva consciousness.
It's coming from within us.
So we have a choice.
And recognizing that, that's a huge step.
It's like reclaiming our power, choosing love over fear.
Forgiveness over resentment, unity, not division.
And the Source also talks about moving beyond descriptions. Like there's that line, it is not therefore correct to describe Shivatva by such appellations like Mukhanti, Trinetra, etc.
Words can only take us so far.
They're just concepts, right? Helpful, but...
Shivatva, that essence of Shiva consciousness, it's beyond words.
So it's not about rituals or dogmas. It's about, a deeper awareness.
That direct experience, the kind that changes everything.
It changes how we see the world, how we relate to others.
Everything. It becomes real, not just an idea.
The Source also talks about how artists depict God in different ways.
It recognizes the beauty of art, but those are just representations.
Like Lord Shiva with the matted hair, the third eye. Those are symbols.
They point us in the right direction, but they're not the real thing.
Like looking through different colored lenses, right? Each lens gives a unique view.
But none of them show the whole picture.
And despite all these forms, the Source is clear. God is only one.
That's the core message. Beyond all the names and forms.
That fundamental unity. It's like the Source is pleading with us. See through those illusions of separation.
See the connection, and it even says, you are God.
Wow. That's a big statement.
It's pointing to the divinity within each of us, that same consciousness.
It's everywhere, even inside us.
So it's not about worshiping something outside.
But recognizing that divine spark within ourselves.
That's how we connect to something bigger, that ocean of consciousness.
That reminds me of that story about Parvati searching for her son. She looks everywhere except, near Lord Iswara.
It's like we're looking for something that's right in front of us.
Like losing your keys and searching everywhere but your own pocket.
Exactly. And the Source says the best sadhana would be to realize unity in divinity and worship God as such.
It's about seeing past those divisions, embracing a bigger understanding.
It's not about the specific name or form.
It's that oneness that connects us all.
And that's where the real power is, seeing the divine in everything.
It changes how we see life.
We move from that small, ego-driven view
to something bigger, something from the heart.
And this brings up a big question. If Shiva consciousness is everywhere, like the Source says,
what does that mean for how we actually live?
That's a question we're thinking about. If divinity is within us and all around us,
it changes how we see ourselves, others, the world.
It's not just an idea anymore. It becomes how we act.
If we believe in that interconnectedness,
we have to act with compassion, understanding, respect.
Seeing that spark in everyone, even those who seem different.
Recognizing that inherent worth. And remember, the Source says don't blame God for negativity.
Right. Those are just our own projections.
So blaming God for suffering is kind of like blaming ourselves.
We're all part of this web, and our actions contribute to it.
That's a powerful thought. It shifts things from blame to responsibility.
It's empowering, really.
Yeah.
We can make choices to change things.
Instead of getting caught up in conflict,
we can focus on what unites us.
Choosing love, compassion, understanding.
Like that line from the Source, it is only love that can bind God.
Love is the key.
It lets us experience that oneness.
So love becomes a practice.
A way to connect to something greater.
It's like that story where Saraswati steps in. Lakshmi and Parvati, they're so focused on appearances.
They miss the unity.
Saraswati reminds us to look deeper.
See beyond the surface.
That's a message we need today, with all the division and conflict.
It's easy to get caught up in us versus them.
But we're all connected.
Sharing that same divine spark.
It changes everything if we can remember that.
It's a message of hope.
Even in the chaos, there's that unity.
And that's something powerful to hold on to. Yeah, it's a big shift. For sure. Seeing the whole, not just the parts.
And there's so much beauty in that, isn't there? That interconnectedness. It's awe-inspiring.
It really is. So it's about going beyond just thinking about it.
Feeling it in your heart. That's where the real transformation happens.
Moving from the mind to the heart. From fear to love.
It changes us from the inside out. And that changes the world around us, too.
The Source even talks about this being a lifelong journey. It says, any length of time is insufficient to describe the Shivatwa.
We're always learning, always growing, always discovering more. It's not about reaching some end point.
It's about the journey itself.
Yeah.
Each step brings us closer to, that divinity within.
And as we awaken to that, we start to see it everywhere. We treat ourselves, others, the planet with more respect, more reverence.
So it goes beyond just us, doesn't it? It's about making the world a better place.
We're all connected, so what we do matters. Our actions have an impact.
Like the Source says, don't attribute negativity to God.
It's not coming from there. It's coming from us.
So if we want a more positive world, we have to start with ourselves.
It's about taking responsibility, choosing love over fear.
Building a world based on compassion and understanding.
Like that line we keep coming back to, it is only love that can bind God. Love is the key to a better world.
It's more than just words, isn't it? It's a way of life.
It is. Remember that story with Lakshmi and Parvati? They were missing the bigger picture.
They got lost in the details. We all do that sometime.
But Saraswati reminds us to look deeper.
See beyond the surface.
Such an important message, especially now.
When everything feels so divided.
It's easy to get caught in that us versus them trap. But if we can remember that connection,
we all share that same spark.
That changes everything. It gives us hope.
Even in the midst of all the chaos. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this thought.
We've explored some profound ideas, but it's not just about understanding them intellectually. It's about letting them sink in, letting them change you.
If Shiva consciousness is everywhere, if it's within you and all around you, how does that change things? How do you see yourself differently?
How do you treat others? How do you move through the world?
We invite you to really sit with these questions.
Yeah.
Let them guide you. Remember, you're not separate. You're connected.
You're not just a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean.
In that ocean, there's so much possibility, so much love, so much joy. Embrace that. Live from that truth and see how it transforms your life.